All right, fight fans, you ready to dive into UFC Fight Night? Jan versus Figueiredo. We saw knockouts, upsets, and some serious drama all the way over in Macau.
Oh, yeah. This event had it all. From veterans fighting to get back on top
Yeah.
to some rising stars trying to make their name.
You know, like you said, spinning kicks that would even make Bruce Lee proud.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's just start right at the top. Main event. Petr Yan against Davison Figueiredo.
Oh, yeah.
Now, these guys, they both have some serious championship history.
Right. You've got Jan, the former bantamweight champ. He is looking to come back after a couple of losses.
For sure.
And then you've got Figueiredo, the former flyweight king, trying to prove he can hang with the big boys up at bantamweight.
Yeah, and he's trying to jump up a weight class.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really felt like a clash of styles going into this one. But man, Jan just shut it down.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was a clinic.
Yeah.
A clinic on how to just control a fight. Jan's jab was so on point. He mixed in some takedown attempts, just to keep Figueiredo guessing. And his defense, it was like a wall.
Impenetrable.
Impenetrable, yeah. Figueiredo just couldn't find any openings.
Couldn't get anything going.
No.
Unanimous decision for Jan. All three judges scored at 50-45. Where do you think this puts him? Is he right back in the title picture?
Oh, this has to. This is the kind of performance that makes everyone remember why Jan was a champ in the first place.
Right.
He is back. And the rest of that division, they better watch out.
All right, let's move on to the co-main event.
Yeah.
We got Yan Xiaonan taking on Tabitha Ricci in the strawweight division.
Yep.
This was a huge fight for Xian, especially after losing her title shot.
Big fight. Big fight. The pressure was definitely on for her. If she had lost this one, it could really hurt her in the rankings.
Absolutely.
But she delivered. Dominant win. Unanimous decision. All three judges had it 30-27.
Yeah, she just looked so sharp. Using her striking to control the distance, and then when they got close, her grappling was just shutting down Ricci's takedowns.
Yeah. She showed off how well-rounded she is as a fighter, and this win, it puts her right back in the mix. She is one of the top contenders in that division.
Oh, for sure. Now, for the moment, I think everyone's still talking about it. We got to talk about Muslim Salikov and that knockout.
Oh, my goodness.
40 years old, coming off of 2 losses, and then he pulls this out.
Like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
That spinning wheel kick on Song Keenan. Are you kidding me? It was like something out of a movie, a video game.
First round, lights out.
First round, yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. You just don't see finishes like that very often.
No, you don't.
Keenan never saw it coming. And that crowd went absolutely wild. The King of Kung Fu, he earned that name.
He lives up to that name. Yeah. And you can see his background in Wushu Sanda in that kick. That is his second UFC finish using a spinning technique. And you can bet that everybody who might fight him is studying that tape right now.
Very carefully.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a reminder that in MMA, age is just a number.
Yeah.
You can never count out a fighter with that level of skill and determination.
And the dedication. He is so dedicated to what he does.
Yeah.
And this win puts him right back on the map in the welterweight division. I am very excited to see who he gets matched up with next.
Speaking of knockouts, this event had a lot of them.
Oh, so many.
You had Ming Shi. She had that insane head kick knockout against Xiao Can Feng. That was a scary moment.
Scary moment, yeah.
And Feng went down. But thankfully, we heard later that she was okay.
Yeah, she was okay.
But that was a reminder of just how powerful
yeah.
the women's strawweight division is.
It's an exciting division. So many talented fighters in there.
And unpredictable,
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then you have Dong Hoon Choi knocking out Kiru Sahota in the first round. And Zhang Mingyang with a TKO win over Ozzy Diaz. That was a good one.
Just a ton of action all night long.
Yeah, it was nonstop action. And what was really cool to see was just how many different ways people were finishing their fights.
Right.
You had punches, you had kicks, elbows. It really shows you how much MMA striking has evolved.
For sure.
People are coming up with all sorts of new techniques and combinations.
And it's awesome to watch.
It is, yeah. This event in Macau, it really showed just how global MMA has become.
Yeah.
We saw fighters from all over the world stepping into the octagon.
It's true. You had China, Brazil, Russia, the U.S.
And I think it shows that combat sports just have this universal appeal.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're from or what language you speak. There's just something about that competition, the skill,
right.
the athleticism that people they connect with.
Let's talk about a fighter who maybe didn't get the win, but still has so much potential, and that's Davison Figueiredo.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, moving up to bantamweight, that was a bold move. It was a bold move. He's definitely a smaller fighter at bantamweight,
Right.
but he still brings that power,
Oh, yeah.
that explosiveness that made him a champ at flyweight.
He's got that it factor.
He does, yeah.
Like you always feel like he's one punch away from ending the fight.
Absolutely, yeah.
But against a technical striker like Jan, it felt like that size difference really showed.
It did, yeah.
Jan was able to control the distance, keep Figueiredo on the outside, and just really neutralize that power.
For sure.
So where does Figueiredo go from here?
That's a great question.
Does he try to stay at bantamweight, maybe make some adjustments, or does he go back down to flyweight where he had so much success?
Yeah, that's got to be enough call for him.
Yeah.
I mean, going back down, he could probably reclaim the title at flyweight.
Right.
But if he stays at bantamweight, he's testing himself against the best.
Yeah.
Maybe even create a whole new legacy for himself.
Right. Right.
It's probably something that keeps him up at night.
Either way, he's a warrior, and I don't think we've seen the last of him.
No, absolutely not.
Another fighter who had a tough night, Xiaoqin Feng. I mean, that head kick knockout from Ming Shi was brutal.
It was brutal, yeah.
That's just the reality of this sport.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that these fighters are putting it all on the line every time they step into that octagon.
Right.
And we got to respect that.
Absolutely.
You know, their courage and resilience.
Yeah.
You know, those knockouts, those are great for the fans, but you always have to keep in mind fighter safety. It's got to be the top priority.
For sure.
The UFC has done a lot with the medical protocols, the regulations.
Right.
But moments like that, head kick knockout, they remind us how dangerous this sport can be.
It's a conversation we need to keep having.
Definitely, yeah.
Before we move on, I wanted to touch on a fighter who wasn't even on this card, but has been making headlines, and that's Conor McGregor.
That guilty verdict in his sexual assault case is a big deal, and it brings up some tough questions about fighter conduct and the UFC's responsibility.
It's a really complex situation, no doubt.
Right.
You know, gotta respect the legal process, everyone's privacy.
Of course.
But we can't ignore what this means for the sport.
McGregor was the biggest star,
Yeah.
but this has definitely hurt his image, and it puts the UFC in a tough spot.
It does, yeah.
You know, they want to support their athletes, but they also have to maintain some standards.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle this going forward
Yeah.
and what, if any, consequences McGregor faces.
This situation, it's not just about winning and losing fights.
Yeah.
It's about accountability, you know, being responsible when you have fame and influence.
It's bigger than the sport.
Exactly. And it's a conversation that needs to be had in all sports, not just MMA.
All right, let's get back to the fights. Dong Hoon Choi had a great showing with that first-round knockout of Kiro Sahota.
Yeah, that was impressive.
He showed some real power, some precision.
Absolutely. That was a statement win. The rest of the light heavyweight division, they better take notice.
For sure. And how about Zhang Mingyang? TKO win over Ozzy Diaz.
Another great finish.
He showed some real heart in that one.
Yeah, he weathered the storm early on, but then came back strong.
I was impressed by his composure.
Yeah.
He didn't panic when things weren't going his way.
Right.
He stuck to the game plan and found a way to win.
That's what separates the good fighters from the great fighters, you know?
Right.
That mental toughness.
That ability to adapt.
Exactly.
Ming Yang is young, but he's got a bright future.
He does.
We've talked about a lot, but before we wrap up, let's look ahead to the heavyweight division. John Jones is at the top, but who's next?
Well, there are a few names that come to mind.
Okay.
You've got Tom Aspinall, who's coming back from injury.
Right.
He's got that explosive striking, and he's hungry to prove himself.
And you can't forget about Sergey Pavlovich.
Oh, yeah.
6 straight wins, all by knockout.
A force of nature. Then you've got Cyril Gane, the former interim champ.
Right.
He gave Jones a tough fight the first time.
He did.
One of the most skilled heavyweights out there.
And even though he lost to Jones, can you ever really count out Stipe Miocic?
No, absolutely not.
The heavyweight division is stacked right now.
Oh, it's so exciting. And one thing's for sure, John Jones has a target on his back, and there are a lot of guys who want that title.
Well, that wraps up part 2 of our deep dive into UFC Fight Night, Jan versus Figueiredo. Join us for part 3, where we'll take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the future of MMA and what it all means. We're back for the final round of our deep dive, UFC Fight Night. Jan versus Figueiredo. We saw knockouts, comebacks, and talk about some of the bigger questions around the sport. But now I want to take a step back. Big picture time. What are some of your key takeaways from this event?
One thing that really stood out to me was how MMA is evolving.
Okay, yeah.
The fighters are so well-rounded now.
Yeah, they're not just strikers. They're not just grapplers.
Exactly. They have to be able to do it all. Yeah. And it makes the fight so much more exciting.
And unpredictable, too.
Oh, for sure. You never know what's going to happen.
It feels like MMA has come such a long way from where it started.
It really has, yeah. It's still a young sport compared to something like boxing, but it's growing so fast.
And it's attracting athletes from all different backgrounds, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we're seeing fighters with backgrounds in Muay Thai, judo, wrestling,
I
kickboxing.
think a melting pot of styles.
And it's only making the sport better.
It is, yeah. It's creating something totally new and dynamic.
And the fans are evolving, too.
Yeah, for sure.
MMA has gone from this niche thing to, like, this global phenomenon.
It's amazing how big it's gotten. And I think the fans are really starting to appreciate the technical side of it.
Right, not just the knockouts.
Right.
Like, they're understanding the strategy, the mental game.
Exactly. They're seeing how much skill it takes to be an elite MMA fighter.
Yeah, the dedication, the discipline. And I think fans are connecting with the stories behind the fighters, too.
Yep.
You know, their journeys, their struggles. It's that human element that's making this sport so popular.
I agree.
So we've talked about the fighters and the fans. But what about the organizations like the UFC? What do they need to think about for the future?
Well, the UFC is still the biggest name in the game, but they're facing more competition.
Right, with other organizations like the PFL and Bellator.
Right.
And a lot of fighters are starting to question how much they get paid.
It's true. They're looking for better opportunities, which is understandable.
But this competition, it's probably good for the sport, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's pushing the UFC to innovate, to create a better product.
It's giving fighters more choices, too, which is great.
It really feels like we're entering a new era in MMA.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Fighters have more power now, and that's a good thing.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Definitely. The UFC has to adapt if they want to stay on top.
So, as we wrap up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
MMA is always changing. There are always surprises. You never know who's going to rise to the top or who's going to fall.
Yeah.
But one thing that stays the same is the heart of the sport.
The respect, the dedication.
Yeah, and the human spirit. That drive to compete, to overcome adversity, to achieve greatness.
Keep your eyes on the octagon, fight fans, because the future of MMA is looking bright. That does it for this deep dive. We'll be back soon to break down even more action from the world of MMA. Until then, train hard, fight smart, and stay